step into the future where the beats don't stop, with a not centralized show ready to drop. Talking AI, blockchain, the tech that's hot, bringing your knowledge that'll make your mind pop.
Can you see that there's a little bit of an NC there?
Yeah, it's a good question. Can you hold the mic to your mouth so we can actually hear you? So, man, what are we talking about today? We just had a really good podcast before, and you can tell it was before because it was daylight. The problem of randomness and stochasticity in AI.
Big random words
And prompt flows, and otherwise it's just like trial and error. And we're back, folks, and the day has turned to night, as you can see in the background here, the lovely Sydney Opera House. And I didn't get to mention it before, but like we normally have a ship there, so this is a rare occasion that we're actually seeing stuff. And you can probably see your house over there or something.
Yeah, it's right there. It's actually right there.
Oh, see, there you go. He's deluded. Yeah. It's the AI hallucination. He's being too close to it. But guys, this is Arturo. If you didn't know him already, I haven't seen him at meetups. He is a co-founder of the Oz DeFi Association, did some stuff with me at the Data Science and AI Association, DSAI, which is now under new leadership, and we work together in Not Centralized. But we're going to talk about AI today, buddy. What's happening?
A lot. There's a lot happening.
There's a lot happening, but what are you seeing like right now? I mean, we're going to talk about the article that you've just written and stuff, but yeah.
So I think that what we're trying to do is understand how we implement these language models into corporate environments, right? And corporate environments are really interesting because they have very high requirements in terms of many different things. They are infrastructural requirements so that you can set permissions on access to data and access to functionality. They have requirements in terms of the accuracy of the output of the models, and they also have requirements in terms of how easy it is to actually implement the workflow linked to this prompt into their existing infrastructure, right? So if you have an app and this app has a button, and when you press that button, something prompt related has to happen, then you need to make it really simple for these corporates to write the prompt, deploy it, and this app just has direct access to it.
I think making it easier to use AI tools, there's the umbrella term. Like we know that generative AI is like a sub branch and part of the overall kind of bigger umbrella, but to everyone else it is AI. But part of it is the education, and it's not just the overall awareness and where and when to use it and what's overhyped and what's been undervalued, but just in terms of how to use it, which you're talking about, it's not been really straightforward. We see a whole lot of, hey, this is the best way to prompt, and it still feels like a roll of the dice to many. And so that trust factor that people have with these tools, I think, will get eroded unless we do something about it. And I guess that's the key highlight of the topic that you wrote about. So explain, you've got in the title there, stochasticity.
Yeah.
What does that mean, and why is this a problem?
So I think that the biggest problem that we're facing right now, apart from access to permissions, is the credibility that you can assign to the output of one of the models, right? I think that there are two ways of dealing with that. One of them is to make better models, but I think that's it's a very difficult task. Second of all, I think that you need to have a better definition of what better model means, right? I think that one of the reasons why these models are so extremely good is because they have that randomness, which is very inherent in the way that we deal with natural language, right? So killing off the randomness, unless you do so in a very specific form, kills off a lot of the efficiency that the model has, right?
Okay.
Now, the way that we see it, if you're not fixing the model, you are fixing the way in which you implement or use the model, right? So when you ask a GPT model to execute a prompt, there are basically two things that you're doing, at least, or that you're expecting the model to do. One of them is to define the context of the prompt. So if your prompt is really short and it doesn't have much specificity in terms of the words that you're using, you're expecting the model to choose randomly which context that word is relating to.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, is that when you ask the model to execute a prompt and that prompt has multiple steps, most prompts have implicitly multiple steps that need to be taken. You're also asking the model to choose which steps to take in solving that problem. So there are two dimensions. One of them is the context for the prompt. The second is how you solve the problem within the prompt.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing with PromptFlows and semantic programming is mixing and matching the wonders of prompting with the specificity of just traditional software development, right? So that we can have a YAML file or a script that incorporates the prompt, but also tells us how to execute that in a really, really nice and structured form.
And that structured form, does that reduce the
Yes.
randomness?
Yes, it reduces the randomness because you're linking nodules or knowledge modules through a RAG mechanism, so that you can say this word pertains to the information within this knowledge base. So you're automatically assigning a context, and it's up to you to define how well described that context is through the files that you're uploading into this nodule and you're offering access to as RAG, right? That's also where the permission comes in. But then PromptFlow allows you to daisy chain the execution of prompts, right? So you can have sub-prompts that are very, very specific, and the output of one sub-prompt goes into the input of the next prompt. And in so doing, you're also defining the execution of the solution, right, of the more complex problem.
That's really fascinating. It sounds like there's this, and you mentioned it in the article as well, this framework for thinking about how to not just chain prompts together, but just how to use, I think this is overall a message for how to use AI when it comes to corporations, because one thing is just to be fun and, make it sound like a pirate, or create me a poem, or, finish off this birthday card that I'm creating. But it has been a bit of trial and error, and which is why we see people saying things like, this is the best way to prompt, be nice to the AI. No, this is the best way to prompt. Don't worry about being nice to the AI. And not just these things where people are going back and forth as to what's best, but we have seen that by breaking things down, you get better results. But this overall sounds like a bit of a framework. Would you call it that?
Yes. I think that going back to the reason why SIKE exists and why PromptFlows is that way of properly engaging with SIKE, which is an orchestrator for prompts, right? What we're trying to do is more explicitly have almost like an API or an SDK, right, where you can define all of these different workflows that are not only conversational. I think that most of the work that people are doing in terms of user experiences based on prompts is conversations with knowledge, which is extremely valuable, but it's just part of the much bigger piece of what large language models can do for the wider organization and, dare I say, the wider economy. One part that we've been very successful with is transforming unstructured data to structured data, right? So if you have a questionnaire, for example, many of the answers in that, or many of the questions in that survey can be answered based on existing documentation. So instead of asking a person 10 different questions, you could just ask them, upload a file. That file is just natural language, and the GPT is able to extract the information answering those questions from that document, right? i.e. transforming unstructured data to structured data, which then you can do some magic with.
I think that's really important to understand what the repercussions are of not doing that, because if you don't, I think, you get people that you're not really harnessing the true power of the reasoning engine that's there. And whilst it is great to have the conversational part, you know, the threads, the back and forth, kind of like the tennis match, you miss out on, you know, having that true power of efficiency that comes from doing something like this, and the amount of time that's saved. You can do some more, you know, human to human kind of like get in front of clients. You can create more ideas and stuff. But this all also sounds like, and we speak about it a little bit, but you know, large language models or AI or GPT as an operating system. Can you explain that a bit more? Because you mentioned that a few times actually.
Yeah, that's a really good one. So an operating system is it's actually not just one piece of software, right? It's a combination of different pieces of software that together make it possible for you to engage with that computer, but more importantly, make it easy for you to create apps, i.e. develop on top of that computer, right? So you have the kernel, which kind of orchestrates everything in relation to the CPU and all of the pieces of software around that, like, for example, the drivers that connect to specific types of hardware, the user interface that, you know, is what makes you be able to see windows and all that kind of stuff, right? But they're not apps per se, because it's not like Word or Excel. If you had to, let's assume that you had to develop all of that stack on top of developing Excel every time you created something like Excel, right? It would take forever. We're doing the same thing with regards to GPTs, where we think of the foundation model as the CPU, right? And then around that CPU or that foundation model, there are multiple things that need to be available for a developer to easily be able to deploy solutions that are compliant with regards to permissions, that are compliant with regards to access to information, that have information that, for example, is being updated according to a given frequency linked to a specific API, all these different things, right? What we want to do is offer almost a toolkit for developers or prompt engineers to say, well, this is how I want my environment to look like. This is the information that we should access. And this is the prompt that processes that information in order to achieve a specific goal, right? And not need to worry about how to set all of that up in a cloud-based environment, because we've done that for them.
Yeah, because the tools are there, exactly. And, you know, there's going to be some interesting things that can be built on top of that. What you've got is like created something where here is a chat interface with some agents with, I don't know how we would describe dreams, but you know, that cool ideation kind of planning post-it note on steroids, or Evernote on steroids is what we've heard, kind of section. But there's plenty more in the survey one that you mentioned, and there's so many more that are coming that I guess not showing yet, and others will come up with. So building on top of this, I think, is like really quite powerful, and we hear it all the time with great ideas that people are coming out with.
Yeah, I don't think that we even think of it as features that much anymore. We think of it more as just engaging with existing workflows, right? If you're a law firm, then this is what you do. Or if you are, I don't know, if you're a content creator, then this is what you do. If you're a compliance officer, then this is what you do. Each one of those is not really a feature. It's just about understanding how people do their knowledge-based service and represent that or parts of that as prompts that can be executed so that the individual can focus on more added value things than, you know, standard research is actually quite, it's what's the word? It's not boring, it can be, but it's very process driven, right?
Yep.
So you can have a machine do that research or do quality control over a document because they're always the same type of questions, right? I think that you as an individual want to do things that are not that repetitive, because that's not really your added value. Computers are much better at doing that, right?
And finding out those things, I think that's the future that we're starting to get into. And you know, what you said there before, we see it because we do the work in the blockchain space, that there needs to be this thought about, okay, great that there's this tool out there, but how will businesses really take advantage of it? And having having done a lot of stuff that we've done and gotten into organizations and seeing the problems that they face if they just use these things off the shelf as they were at the time without the tweaking. It's the same in blockchain. Like, you can't just put something in front of a group. You have to understand, how does this actually work inside that organization. And so, there's further stuff that we'll talk about from the blockchain side of things, but it's really nice to see that there is a parallel there with how do you actually, it's all about workflows at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think also that in doing a lot of this implementation, that is not just blue sky thinking. I mean, we love doing the blue sky thinking, but it's when you're forced by a customer to take it down to earth and understand what the really small, perhaps even boring things are that actually have big repercussions. Like, for example, almost every single business that we speak to that is building a language model, or rather implementing a language model, faces the question of how you monetize it, right? How do you price the service? What we've done there is, within SIKE and PromptFlows, we have the ability to track the cost for every single user, track the cost for every single nodule, and be able to set caps for spend on tokens for each one of these different workflows. Now, again, that sounds like super boring, but at the same time, it actually solves a real world problem, because when you sit in front of a customer that has no idea, as most do, about how much spend does a specific prompt cost, how much are their customers or their employees going to use it, they don't want to have that shock bill of $1,000 per month per user for things that even add value to them, but nevertheless, it's still a shock because they're not expecting it, right?
Yeah.
By you being able to set those caps and have that trace of cost, it all of a sudden becomes user-friendly.
I agree, and obviously I would agree because I'm working with you, but it'd be really interesting to see how others get to build further on this. The more conversations we've had, at some point we'll even get some customers on here too, but across healthcare, finance, legal, ESG, etc., and even government, I think there's some really interesting things that will be transformed in terms of how we are doing AI. And obviously we're linking to the article, as you would have seen through watching this. You would have seen elements of it, but there's further thinking that I know that we're working on, and people will be able to see. But how do people, if they want to learn more about all this, where can they come chat with you and learn all about that?
Yeah. So we're writing a number of Medium articles that explain how PromptFlows works, but more explicitly explain how semantic programming, as that mix between natural language and actual formal software development, works really nicely. We're starting to see customers really engage with this line of thought. And it's fascinating to see customers not only engage with the line of thought in terms of how they evolve their own businesses, but actually how customers start engaging with their own customers using these tools, because we're showing how we can offer different ways of monetizing their services and monetizing their knowledge, which really brings out this ecosystem or this network effect that AI actually brings to the table, that is quite similar to blockchain, but in a completely different form, right? The similarities that the network effect, the difference is that AI is something that can add value to a single individual working on it on its own, while as blockchain, for the value to exist, everybody needs to be using it, right? So it's much more difficult to get to that network effect, that value.
Absolutely, and we're going to see a lot more about how there is that crossover and how they help each other. But for people that want to read, obviously check out Arturo's Medium, which we'll link into the show notes, and we'll also put it on our blog at Not Centralized. And I think there's a whole lot more that is going to be just fascinating about this space, especially as if you think about it, yes, there are so many people that are users of AI, and there are so many companies with users of AI tools, but there are still so many within each company. So you could say as a company, yeah, we've got people using AI and you tick the box, but that's not the entire company yet. No. I don't think we're seeing anything near where we've got the potential to go, where almost the entire company is on the single kind of knowledge base and contributing to it and getting good feedback and insights and usefulness out of it. We're not there yet, so there's plenty more to go.
No, I mean, the one very possible outcome is that you get a different way of institutionalizing IP, right? A way in which IP is actually usable. You don't just put it into that shared drive and you have it because you need it, but you never really use it. It's something that is actually at your fingertips constantly. And that'll change the way in which businesses work, not only internally, but also in the way that they engage with their customers. I mean, we're seeing that ourselves. We started off with a policy almost that if you're not using a language model 25% of your time, then you're wasting time. Right? I think that number starts increasing quite quickly once you start putting your IP, your company IP, on models like these. And furthermore, the way in which you engage with your customer also evolves greatly, because you can have many workflows where customers actually engage straight with your knowledge, with your IP, through these knowledge modules and through the prompts that you create. And you jump in only when it's really necessary, when it's of added value, because at the end of the day, people are the bottlenecks most of the time, right? So, us not being that bottleneck is actually a really good outcome.
Getting out of our own way is really the key.
Yeah, and doing things that we're actually good at. And things that we're good at are typically things that we find fun, right? What people do most of the time at work is actually not that fun in their own mind because it's so repetitive.
It's very clerical, and if you want to get out of the clerical nature of work, I think you should definitely come chat to Arturo and us. So, Arturo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Very good. Pause. Well, it looks really nice. I like it when it's dark here.
Can you see the moon?
Yeah, fuck yeah. And I think you can on that too.